We're dealing with a pretty hot subject. Property is quite the interesting subject, especially in Canada, because the Canadian Charter, does not provide property rights. Though there are banks doing business all day long, lending money for people to obtain a mortgage, but what are they really borrowing on? Could it be that they're involved in a dead pledge for a dead body corporate, utilizing a foundation identity document, which would be something false, pseudo, when in essence it has nothing to do with free grace and truth, or based on the salvation that came from the event of Christ's death, which led to our salvation? So when we look at property claim, your proper name is property. That is the proper name. That's the one God gave you for you to have basically dominion over the earth. When we look at the legal strategy of legal persona that is promoted by the legal profession because of their need to prosper in lies and money, make believe, the Blackstone's commentary that deals with property in 1753, he stated, "We think it enough that our title," he's talking about the legal title that we use to claim land, "is derived from the grant of the former proprietor," sounds like business, "by descent from our ancestors, or by the last will and testament of the dying owner, not caring to reflect that, accurately and strictly speaking, there is no foundation in nature or in natural law why a set of words upon parchment should convey the dominion of land." Well, that says a mouthful of truth. If we read that over and over again to help us comprehend from what's going on, even the legalists have stated there could be no piece of paper to give you land, though that's what's done in fiction and in legal. The legal profession's been doing this for a long time. And so these foundation identity documents are not based on nature, because as we read there by Mr. Blackstone, that there is no piece of paper that could do that. So these could never give you the real promised land that God has never broken with his people. It's based on our lack of knowledge to read the scripture for what's there and then look at how the laws are put together by the legalists, the lawyers, those who call themselves the devil's advocates. Now, we can go into a little quote that came out of a real estate site with a little bit of research that was done. And off this real estate site, they basically made the following comment, talking about people's past claiming property in the history of settling the land in various places, especially what we call the New World, which soon will be part of the New World Order. And it says, "Our ancestors, however, who migrated to these places like North America, were farmers, not lawyers." Now remember, original meaning of farmer is tax collector, and the lawyers are the ones who are very good at making sure that the tax is collected. "The fictitious principle that all lands belong originally to the king, they were early persuaded to believe real, and accordingly took grants of their own lands from the crown." Now that would be the legal crown, not the spiritual. "And while the crown continued to grant for small sums and on reasonable rents," well, I guess I'd be reasonable if I'm collecting on something that's fictitious and you're silly enough to believe in ownership by paying for this right legally, There was no inducement, therefore, to arrest the error and lay it open to public view. Well, if you acted on an error like these documents all throughout Canada, or at least through the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, underlined every surname on those birth records that the parents had filled out in the hospital. And basically the UN handbook on birth registration, the civil registration code, stated, and we have a copy of it over here, it stated that since the registration record is used as proof, that would be the registration of recording a legal state surname, because that's the registration, it should be safeguarded from changes, which means that the law or its regulations should ban, prohibit, erasures, that means erasing out the error, additions, insertions between the lines, etc., although to allow for the possibility of errors when making entries, formal rules should be enacted to make exceptions for such mistakes in the record itself. For example, by providing that the word that is wrong or superfluous be underlined, the error or omission then being noted at the end before the record is dated and signed by the registrar and informants. Well, there you go. So if you didn't see the error, then you would have been caught up in the history of this error, because it literally came into heavy usage, installed into the system after the Roman Catholic Church had got the Church of England or the English monarchy to join them. They eventually broke off. One protested against the other for power and a commercial collection of taxes. But when you look at the two, by the 1200s, they were both basically utilizing a system which listed and recorded people who asked for granted legal title from the legal crown. They were recorded in what was called the Domesday Books for these land registries. So as was stated there, it was due to their lack of perception, because they weren't lawyers who were in on the scam. And so they basically, the average individual, commoner, was already busy from where he had been before, paying tax and being a farmer of tax for the state, because of not basically knowing who their king is, and basically change your belief, and you would be changing the law. Which side are you on? Are you in the legal, or are you in God's law? And God's law does not support lying and fiction. So you can imagine the damage that we've walked into by participating in a system that is based on fictitious theory and deception. My people will be destroyed due to lack of knowledge, and that is what is happening today. So I hope this has clarified some things regarding property, because no one owns any property in this world in a legal basis, other than those who invented the scam.